And it says, I lead a top Israeli human rights group, an Israeli human rights group. So check your anti-Semitic bullshit rhetoric talking points at the door on this one, please, okay? So I lead a top Israeli human rights group, and she says our country is committing genocide. No ifs, ands, buts, maybes, possiblies, kindas. It looks like, that's what it seems like. It could be none of that shit. Our country is committing a genocide. For nearly 2 years, we've heard Israeli officials, politicians, generals alike say out loud what they intend to do: to starve, flatten, and erase Gaza. We will eliminate them. We will make it uninhabitable. We will cut off food, water, electricity. They weren't slips of the tongue. They were the plan. And then the Israeli military carried it out. By the textbook definition, this is genocide. Let's head into this first article that I wanted to talk about here, because obviously this is something that we've been covering, the ongoing atrocities, the ongoing humanitarian disaster perpetrated by Israel, the ongoing, fucking man-made starvation in which they try to justify and cover up at the same time, which clearly makes absolutely no sense. But again, I'll read. Israel's defense minister says Gaza City should be destroyed. Israel's defense minister warned on Friday that Gaza City could be destroyed unless Hamas accepts Israel's terms as the country prepares for an expanded offensive in the area. We saw overnight smoke plumes rising from Gaza City from strikes that happened either early in the morning or overnight. A day after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he would authorize the military to mount a major operation to seize Gaza City, Defense Minister Israel Katz warned that the enclave's largest city could, quote, turn into Rafah and Beit Hanun. Areas reduced to rubble earlier in the war. The gates of hell will open on the heads of Hamas murderers and rapists in Gaza until they agree to Israel's conditions for ending the war. He restated Israel's ceasefire demands, the release of all hostages, and Hamas's complete disarmament. Hamas said it would release captives in exchange for ending the war, but rejects disarmament without the creation of a Palestinian state. The wide-scale operation in Gaza City could start within days. Gaza City is Hamas's military and governing stronghold on top of what Israel believes is an extensive tunnel network that we've continuously heard about but seen absolutely no evidence of. It is also sheltering hundreds of thousands of civilians and still houses some of the Strip's critical infrastructure and health facilities. And just to, I guess I should probably clarify, not to say that we haven't seen the use of tunnels, but we have not seen this extensive underground labyrinth of fucking high-tech, integrated, well-established, well-built communications bunkers stretching fucking miles wide with, we have not seen it. We've been told, we've been shown AI fucking recreations by Israel, but we have not seen said fucking a labyrinth of large tunnel networks that are just, the basis of Hamas's military epicenter, the epicenter of Hamas's military fucking structure. Hamas said earlier this week that it had agreed to a ceasefire proposal from Arab mediators, which, if accepted by Israel, could forestall the offensive. The parties do not negotiate directly, and similar announcements have been made in the past that did not lead to ceasefires. The proposal outlines a phased deal involving hostage and prisoner exchanges and a pullback of Israeli troops, while talks continue on a longer-term ceasefire deal. Israeli leaders have resisted such terms since abandoning a similar agreement earlier this year amid divisions with Netanyahu's coalition and strong opposition from his right. Many Israelis fear an assault could doom the roughly 20 hostages still alive after Hamas-led militants' October 7, 2023 attack. Aid groups and international leaders warn it would worsen Gaza's humanitarian crisis. That is fucking so self-explanatory. It's almost ridiculous to have to put into this article. Yes, an added offensive, the ongoing offensive, will only worsen the humanitarian crisis here. That's fucking ridiculous for us to even have to contemplate. The logistics of evacuating civilians are expected to be daunting. Many residents say that repeated displacement is pointless since nowhere in Gaza is safe, while medical groups warn Israel's calls to move patients south is unworkable with no facilities to receive them. But Netanyahu has argued the offensive is the surest way to free captives and crush Hamas. These two things, defeating Hamas and releasing our hostages, go hand in hand, except for the hostages that you murdered as they were coming out, except for the hostages that you continue to bomb incessantly against the wishes and request of the families of the hostages themselves. So I'm not sure that we can actually take their word for it on how careful they're willing to be And what we've already, it's fucking even ridiculous to contemplate this and to suggest, after we've heard so many times from Netanyahu, ambassadors all over the world from Israel, that even if, even when, and even after Hamas were to give up, release the rest of the hostages, that this fucking engagement, that this battle, that this attack would not cease, right? It would not stop. We've heard that many, many times from any number of Israeli officials, IDF soldiers, IDF representatives, IDF spokespeople. So this fucking like, oh, we're just trying to get the hostage is so fucking, such complete and utter bullshit, used and wielded by the IDF, used and wielded by the fucking Israeli government to justify their horrendous fucking actions and policies. So much so that you have people like this. Let me just put this on the screen for you guys, right? This is the Guardian article from Wednesday, the 30th of July, 2025, all right? And it says, I lead a top Israeli human rights group, an Israeli human rights group. So fucking check your anti-Semitic bullshit rhetoric talking points at the fucking door on this one, please, okay? So I lead a top Israeli human rights group, and she says our country is committing genocide. No ifs, ands, buts, maybes, possiblies, kindas. It looks like, that's what it seems like. It could be none of that shit. Our country is committing a genocide. And then she goes on to say that my generation was raised wondering how ordinary people could countenance an atrocity. In a grotesque twist, the question has circled back on us. This is the photo says here, the surreal has become routine. Sites reduced to ash, entire neighborhoods flattened, families displaced, then displaced again. I mean, look at this, guys. Look at this. I mean, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? And you'll go on to see later on in the show, I got a clip here of another Israeli official, another Israeli representative, trying to tell us that the world is being lied to as it pertains to the famine, as it pertains to the starvation of the Palestinian people, and that there's more than enough resources and food to go around. Does that look like a place on screen right now? Does that look like a place where there's adequate resources, food, shelter, water? Does that look like humane conditions to you? I'm not even going to say anything. I'll just let you be the judge. Here's the photograph. Look in the background of what the homes look like that are even still standing. The rubbish, the lack of fucking water, the lack of food, the lack of resources. And you're going to fucking try and and that's fucking a maniacal laughter as it pertains to the Israeli officials that actually tried to still say that there's no ongoing humanitarian crisis, there's no ongoing starvation, there aren't children that are dying every single fucking day because they can't get enough food, children that should weigh fucking double what they weigh now, triple what they weigh now. Is just so fucking enraging. It's so fucking frustrating. The question keeps gnawing at me. Could this really be it? Could we really be living through a genocide? Outside Israel, millions already know the answer, but many of us here can't or won't say it out loud. Perhaps because the truth threatens to unmake everything we believed about who we are and who we wanted to be. To name it is to admit that the future will require reckoning, not just with our leaders, but with ourselves. But the cost of refusing to see is even higher. For Israelis of my generation, the word genocide was supposed to remain a nightmare from another planet, a word tethered to our grandparents' photographs and the ghost of European ghettos, not to our own neighborhoods. We were the ones who asked from a distance about others. How could ordinary people go on with their lives while something like this happened? How could they let it happen? What would I have done in their place? In a grotesque twist of history, that question now circles back to us. For nearly 2 years, we've heard Israeli officials, politicians, generals alike say out loud what they intend to do, to starve, flatten, and erase Gaza. We will eliminate them. We will make it uninhabitable. We will cut off food, water, electricity. They weren't slips of the tongue. They were the plan. And then the Israeli military carried it out. By the textbook definition, this is genocide. The deliberate targeting of a population, not for who they are as individuals, but because they belong to a group. An attack designed to destroy the group itself. We told ourselves the stories to survive the horror. Fuck, I'm not even going to get through it. Stories that kept guilt and grief at bay. 1 second. Fuck, huh? I didn't see that one coming. We convinced ourselves that every child in Gaza was Hamas, every apartment a terrorist cell. We became, without noticing, those ordinary people who keep living their lives while it is happening. I can still recall the first time reality cracked open for me. 2 months ago, 2 months into what I was still calling a war, three of my B'Tselem, excuse me if I don't say that right, B'Tselem colleagues, Palestinian human rights workers we'd worked alongside for years, were trapped in Gaza without their families. They told me about relatives buried under rubble, and not about being able to shield their children. And not being able to shield their children, about the paralyzing fear. In the frantic efforts to extract them from Gaza, I learned something that has seared itself into my mind. At that moment, a living Palestinian in Gaza could be ransomed for roughly 20,000 shekels. Children cost less. Life priced in cash per head. They were not abstract statistics. They were people I knew. And that was when I understood the rules have changed. Since then, the surreal has become routine. Cities reduced to ash, entire neighborhoods flattened, families displaced and displaced again, tens of thousands killed, mass starvation engineered, while with aid trucks turned away or bombed, parents feeding animal fodder to their children, some of who die waiting for flour, others are shot, unarmed civilians gunned down for approaching food convoys. Genocide does not happen without mass participation. A population supports it, enables it, or looks away. This is part of its tragedy. Almost no nation that has committed genocide understood in real time what it was doing. The story is always the same. Self-defense, inevitability, the targets brought it on themselves. In Israel, the prevailing narrative insists this all began 7 October with Hamas's massacre of civilians in southern Israel. Excuse me. That day was true horror, a grotesque burst of human cruelty, civilians slaughtered, raped, taken hostage, a concentrated national trauma that summoned for many Israelis a profound sense of existential threat. But 7 October, while catalytic, was not enough on its own. Genocide requires conditions, decades of apartheid and occupation, of separation and dehumanization, of policies designed to sever our capacity for empathy. Gaza, sealed off from the world, became the apex of this architecture. It became the people became abstractions, perpetual hostages in our imagination, subjects to bomb every few years, to kill by the hundreds or thousands with no accountability. We knew more than 2 million people were living under siege. We knew about Hamas. We knew about the tunnels. In hindsight, we knew everything. Yet somehow we were incapable of understanding that some of them might find a way to break out. What happened 7 October was not only military failure, it was a collapse of our social imagination. The delusion we could corral all the violence and despair behind a fence and live peacefully on our side. The rupture arrived under the most extreme right-wing government in Israel's history, a coalition whose ministers openly fantasize about Gaza's erasure. And so, in October 2023, every star in our darkest nightmare aligned. This week, B'Tselem released a report, Our Genocide, compiled by Palestinian and Jewish Israeli researchers together. It is divided into two parts. The first documents how this genocide is being carried out, mass killings, destruction of living conditions, social collapse, and engineered starvation, all fueled by incitement from Israelis' leaders and amplified through media. The second part of the report traces the path led here, decades of systematic inequality, military rule, and policies of separation that normalized Palestinian disposability. And to confront genocide, we must understand it. In order to do so, the Jewish, Israeli, and Palestinians had to look at reality together through the perspective of human beings living on this land. Our moral and human obligation is to amplify the voices of the victims. Our political and historical responsibility is also to turn our gaze to the perpetrators and to testify in real time how a society transforms into one capable of committing genocide. Recognizing this truth is not easy, even for us, people who have spent years documenting state violence against Palestinians. The mind resists it. It rejects facts like poison, tries to spit them out. But the poison is here. It floods the bodies of those who live between the river and the sea, Palestinians and Israelis alike, with fear of unfathomable loss. The Israeli state is committing genocide. And once you accept that, the questions we have asked ourselves all our lives rematerializes with urgency. What would I have done back then on that other planet? Except the answer is not rhetorical. It is now, it is us, and there is only one right answer. We must do everything in our power to stop it. Yuli Novak is the executive director of B'Tselem, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories. And I found that to be incredibly powerful, right? And I think it's good because it dodges and resists the right wing attack, the right wing playbook to ultimately and immediately call you anti-Semitic and fucking somebody that hates Jews because of you're against the policies and what's being perpetrated upon the Palestinian people by the Israeli government, right? So I feel like this kind of sidesteps that. This kind of gets around, and there is no direct attack that Republicans could make upon this to say, oh, she's just anti. Well, no, of course she's not, because she's she's part of an Israeli human rights group, right? But yeah, I found that to be incredibly poignant. And then this was her statements here. This is Yuli here, and this was her statements. Let me see if I can play this from the beginning.
The report we are publishing today is one we never imagined we would have to write. But in recent months, we have been witnessing a reality that has left us no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The report written by us at B'Tselem presents facts, data, and testimonies about how Israel is acting in a deliberate, coordinated, and systematic way to destroy the Palestinians in Gaza, in an attack that aimed at the entire group as such. This has been declared countless times by Israeli officials. This is what is happening on the ground, and this is precisely the definition of genocide.
And, this goes along and corroborates the UN Special Rapporteur's report that we played months and months ago. I don't even know how many months ago at this point. Goes on to very much corroborate her investigation, her reports of an ongoing genocide, definitionally by the Israeli government. I mean, this is not an argument that should be had anymore. This is not an argument of semantics anymore. This is you not being able to recognize reality if you're still not willing to call this out for what it is. The attempted erasure of an entire population by the Israeli government. So I have no sympathy anymore. I have no patience anymore with people that are still unwilling to call this out for what it is, especially as we've seen it only increase in severity, increase in danger and destruction. So, I mean, I don't know how many clips I have to play from very fucking knowledgeable individuals who are specifically, fucking retained to focus on these specific issues that they are so knowledgeable on, and then to give us their findings on these reports. And then for us to listen to their findings of the reports because they are knowledgeable, because they have studied the area, because they are specifically tasked with fucking studying and investigating what's going on, as opposed to, I don't know, me, who is, trying to cover a multitude of different fucking things, who has absolutely no levels of access to any of the information, pictures, on the ground reporting to even put together an investigation like this. How we could even possibly say no, how we could combat any of the arguments being made by the UN Special Rapporteur, by Yuli here, part of the Israeli Human Rights Group, calling her own country out for the genocide they are committing.